Welcome, friends. In this transmission, I'm going to be looking at how we can manage conflict in our relationship. And we all know this one because it feels really painful when we are fighting with people that we love and that we care about, and how amazing it feels when things are going well and we come back into connection. This video is going to look at what is actually going on when we are constantly disconnected from people that we love and care about. What is happening when conflict arises? How can we move back to a place of spaciousness with ourselves and with the others? Let's first look at triggers. So usually preceding a conflict is a trigger. So a trigger is when someone presses our buttons. And this is usually the reaction. We blame them or we move into defending ourselves. Let's look at what's going on. What causes us to react? It's actually a really old part of our brain, our dinosaur brain, which is sending a signal to our body that we are not safe. We are being attacked and we need to defend ourselves. And that's why it feels like a reaction. Sometimes it feels like we don't even have control over our response. It just comes out of us. This they call the 5 trauma responses, which is fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and flop. So for example, my son's trauma response is always fight. Whenever he doesn't feel safe, he responds with aggression. He'll fight. My daughter, on the other hand, will freeze. That is her response to not feeling safe. And it's important to understand that these responses go back to the times where we faced physical dangers every day. We had to survive in the wild, and they were perfectly useful and helpful then. To freeze when a wild animal was near, or to run away, or to fight. But nowadays, the threats that we are facing are not so dramatic. They're much more emotional responses. So reacting in this way is not so helpful for us anymore. And we need to learn to intercept that response and to learn to respond to our situations. Let's quickly have a look at our reacting brain. So the reptilian brain that I spoke about, the instinctual brain in our amygdala, is the red area in the diagram. And that's the part that reacts. Our neocortex, our thinking and rational brain, is what we can access when we are calm. Now, usually when we are triggered, we are in the red part of our brain, we are not calm. And it's hard to access rational thinking mind from that place. So it's really important to learn that calming yourself and bringing yourself back into a place of calm and ease is where you get access to your rational thinking brain, and that's where you can respond from rather than react. Let's have a look at what happens when we respond with aggression to an emotional threat. It sets up a vicious cycle. So party A is triggered and responds with aggression. Now, aggression is anger with blame attached. Anger in and of itself can be healthily expressed, but when we are directing it at someone with blame, that becomes aggression. The other person would naturally feel attacked in that situation, and they are likely to react and respond with blame and aggression back. This escalates the situation as both parties feel increasingly less safe, and that signal that you are not safe from your body becomes stronger. You find that you are both defending yourself, and you begin to play what I call as ping pong, where you are literally throwing darts at each other back and forth. It is a zero-sum game because nobody is listening and everybody is in that dinosaur part of their brain where they are reacting to their situation. They are not able to think rationally or to hear you or to come to any logical place of agreeing with you. So it really is a waste of time. So what can we do? Firstly, it's important to recognize that we have been triggered, that we may be in a game of ping pong with someone else. And we can take practical steps from this point to interrupt that pattern and to take care of our nervous system, to come back to ourselves. Practical steps to creating space are taking slow, deep breaths. You are only ever going to find that space inside you. So you need to come back to yourself. Slow, deep breathing, and I'm talking about like breathing in for 4, holding the breath for 4, breathing out for 4. That level of slowness. It sends a signal to our nervous system to calm down, that we are safe, that there's no external threat to our life, and we can begin to come back out of that dinosaur brain back into our thinking, logical brain, our neocortex. Then we can come into our body. So the mind will obviously be looping, trying to figure it out. But it's really important to let the mind go at this point and just feel your feelings in your body. You could reflect once you are feeling calmer on what are you feeling and what do you need. But I would highly suggest literally just coming back into your body, breathing, staying with yourself, with what you're feeling in that moment, with the fear, with any feelings that are arising at a visceral level. So feeling it, feeling where in your body you are feeling something, breathing into that part, just staying present with it is really helpful to create space. If you're needing support on learning how to do this, you can look at the meditation I've created, which will support you in learning how to move from your mind into your body. It's called Awareness as an Ally. You can access that on my Patreon group, which is called Sacred Union Mystery School. It is for free. What else can we do? Once we are calm and we've connected to ourselves, we want to be able to create connection with the other person. We need to remember the other person wants to feel heard. Once they have been heard, they will have the space to hear you. It is such a gift if you can just park your need to be heard and to make space to really hear the other person, to help them to connect to themselves, to de-escalate and down-regulate their nervous system so they can come back into connection. Communication is really important. This is about listening intuitively from the heart to the other. Listening is creating spaciousness, feeling the other with your heart. What are they feeling? Understand their feelings and then also try and guess at what they're needing. I've put NVC in brackets, which stands for nonviolent communication. It's such an excellent tool that gives you a framework for understanding feelings and needs and how to communicate in this way. So check that out. It is on the internet, nonviolent communication. Also, when it's your turn to communicate, use I language. So if you're talking about your feelings, you can say, I felt this when that happened. You can take ownership of your feelings and your needs. And in that way, the other person doesn't feel blamed. If you are using you did this, you did that, it has the energy of blame and it will trigger the other person into defending themselves. Effective communication opens the space for everyone to get their needs met. So let's look at the gift of triggers. What I've shared so far is what we can do to manage a situation that is volatile and how to come back into connection with ourselves and the other. But it's really important to understand what triggers are. What is that part of ourselves that is reacting emotionally? It's like someone is coming and pressing on an emotional wound. So when we have the time, we can go back to the trigger. We can really sit with it and feel it in our body. What is the part that is afraid and that is scared? You bring your awareness to it. And by doing that, you bring safety to it and you start to understand it. And this is what we call doing the inner work in a relationship. You work with your triggers because underneath them are usually beautiful insights that you can learn about yourself in order to grow and transform. This is where boundaries come in. They are like a fence that we can put around our sensitive parts while we are working on them, while we are healing with them. And we can communicate those boundaries to people that we are in relationship with. You can say, this is a trigger for me. I'm really sensitive to this. I'm working on it. This is what I know about it. But please, could you be respectful of my boundaries while I'm doing that? And boundaries can move in and out according to our safety level. So if we heal wounds, we may be able to take those boundaries away at some point. But some boundaries are just fundamental to our safety. For example, do not hit me. That is fundamental to our safety, to our physical safety. Being hit is going to trigger your need to defend yourself, to protect yourself. So that is a healthy boundary to always have in place. Let's look at discernment. Discernment is what we let into our personal space. You can see the line there is dashed, meaning it's porous. We can choose what we let in, and we always need to remember that it is our choice what we let into our space. And as we learn to heal our shadows, we become better at discerning what energies are good for us and supportive of us. So we become better at saying no and setting boundaries against energies that we know are unhelpful patterns, unhelpful relationships that continue to take us in a certain downward spiral. Ultimately, relationships are a transformational tool. When we work with them with awareness, we can learn to slow down, to listen from the heart, to let go of our ego, which is the part that needs to be right. We learn to make space to allow the other, to hear another, to understand another. We learn to move beyond blame and to create deeper, loving connections. So thank you for sharing this time with me today. I hope you found it useful and that you can start implementing some of those tools to create more harmony, love, and joy in your life. So much love. Until next time.